Welcome to this short factory tour video of what we do here at Makera. We're going to focus on the Carvera Air machine, the brand new machine that's just launched. We're just going to show you how it's assembled, how we make it, how we package it, and all the steps that we take to make it a final product. I'm currently standing in the Carvera Air warehouse. We have a specific warehouse for the machine, and all the parts you see behind me, that's all the parts that puts together the final machine. Now we're here in the machine shop of Makera. It might be a little bit noisy here. We're not going to shut down the machines. We take some raw materials, raw extrusions, for example, this fourth axis tailstock, and we mold some details in that. Specifically on this lathe machine, we mold the inner diameter of the fourth axis into this part, and then the headstock. This also goes through a second step to the other CNC machines where they will do some second details and some holes and some threads just to get a final product like this. Also, another example is the base plate. It's just an extrusion, and we will cut some details in the top of that on our machines. So here we're at the start of the build. Now here you can see the cast iron base frame that's been post-machined. So all the surfaces that needs to be flat, we machine that after it's taken out of the mold. It's just putting the base parts together and adjusting the bridge that connects the two parts of the Y-axis together. And he's also adjusting the ball screw and the ball screw nut to make sure that it operates smoothly and it works well. So this is just the first start, and let's carry on to the second part where we actually assemble a little bit higher. Here we are at the electronics station. So he's actually currently putting the whole electronics backplate onto the machine. Now that's already been pre-assembled, so they pre-assemble that on a different spot. But here you can see the driver of the spindle that sits over there. Then you have the PSU that sits at the back of the driver. And then your controller board that runs most of the parts of the machine sits over here. And then your SD card located in the middle there. Here are some more wires that runs through this loom that goes to all the limit switches and the motors and to the spindle parts. So a very complex part, very simplified as it's just put into one electronics panel. Now we're currently here at the accuracy booth. So what he's testing at the moment is the accuracy of the bed with the X-axis. So the dial indicator is mounted to the linear rail on the Z-axis, and then he moves the bed backwards and forwards to check if it's aligned. He also does that with the X-axis, and then he'll also put the dial indicator on top of the bed to make sure that the bed is level. Another section of the spindle booth, what he's testing is accuracy of the run out of the spindle. It's driven with a very slow motor, and he can check the run out on this dial indicator. It's currently saying 0.006 millimeters, and obviously the spindle run out needs to be very accurate. So this is where we test that, and we do this with every single spindle that goes onto the Carvera Air machines. The next booth we're at is the wired probe booth. Now she's just busy. I can see she's assembling the casings over the main part of the probe, which is this over here. And it's got the trigger in front and it's got the shaft at the back. But then the inside of this is so many little intricate parts. There's a little spring that sits on the inside of that. And one of the smallest washers that I've ever seen on the inside of the wired probe. It's such an important part of the machine. Okay, so the next part we're looking at is some part of the spindle assembly. He's putting the core spindle shaft onto the casing. He's just putting some springs and some washers on the inside. And then he's got a whole jig set up for this. He presses this down. So it's into position. You're not going to be able to do that with your hand. And then when that's into position, you can kind of see the whole assembly of this part that's come together. And on the two sides, you can see that is what connects to the lever to actually loosen the collet to change the tool. So now we're at another part of the testing process, which is the repeatability test. Now what he's actually doing here is he's got a dial indicator mounted to the bed of the machine, and then the tip of the dial indicator goes onto the upright of the machine. Then he goes back and forth to make sure there's no accuracy loss. So just part of the quality testing steps. He does this with a few axes. And then as you can see, there's a whole line of machines here. Many steps are implemented to make sure that it stays accurate for a very long time. So now we're in the fatigue testing room. What they do in this room is they run the machine actually. So they would do a few hours and run the fourth axis for a few hours, and they run the three axis for a few hours. And then the third step will be where they actually mold some material on the machines. Just testing that everything works, and there's some checklists that they go through to make sure everything is accurate and working. So just another step to make sure the machine works well before it gets packaged. One of the final steps in the process is the cleaning. So he's just making sure the machine sparkles for you when you unwrap your machine. And then another fun fact is just the table that the machine gets built on. We never lift the machines in the factory. They build the base on the same table until it gets packaged into the machine. And then they move over to the final packaging. They will just fit all the accessories, make sure that everything's in there that you've ordered. And then they fit the polystyrene piece in there, and then you'll close the lid. After that, they'll wrap that, and then it's ready for the box. The final step of the assembly, they just make sure the package is nicely wrapped. They'll stick on some extras and then they'll actually put it into the box here. Let me just get out of the way. It takes 2 people to put it in the box here. That sits into a polystyrene base as well, so it's got its location. They add some more supports to the side and then some more padding that also goes into the front and the sides of the machine. It's quite firmly packed inside of this box, and then it's also topped up with another piece of polystyrene. So the machine is very secured in the box, and then they will start wrapping it up and sealing it up and taping it up. After it's been boxed, we will pack them in pallets like this, put your name, sticker on it, your address, and then the machine gets shipped right out to you.